I think once you scratch an itch, you can't go back to life as it used to be. Your body knows exactly what you're supposed to be doing, but it's your mind that's constantly telling it not to. And until you address it, like, you can live a very uncomfortable life, I think.
Hey there. Welcome back to the Mischief Movement podcast. I'm Zoe, your guide on this journey to shake up the status quo and design a life that truly makes you feel alive. If you've ever felt disconnected, stuck on autopilot, or trapped in a life that feels more like a treadmill than an adventure, you're in the right place. I know that change can feel scary, so let's turn down the fear and crank up the fierce as we transform your life from the inside out. Whether it's solo episodes packed with actionable advice or interviews with some absolute badass human beings who've dared to defy the norm by living life their way, we're here to inspire, activate, empower, and challenge you each week. My mission is simple: to help you reawaken your rebel spirit, break free from mediocrity, and design a life that's anything but dull. You only get one wild life, so what are you planning to do with yours? If you're ready to stop settling, start living boldly, and create a positive impact along the way, let's dive in and stir up some mischief together. Now buckle up and let's go. If you've ever had that itch to blow up your routine, book a one-way ticket and see who you become when nobody knows your name, you're going to love this one. Today I'm joined by Melissa Rodway, Canadian traveller, professional curiosity follower, and author of The People You Meet. Now, this isn't a here's my cute travel diary situation. Melissa writes about the real magic of wandering, the strangers who become mirrors, the random conversations that crack you open, and the unexpected humans who quietly, or not so quietly, reroute your entire perspective. Because let's be honest, we think we travel to see places, but really, I think we travel to meet versions of ourselves that we haven't had the guts to become yet. In The People You Meet, Melissa explores what happens when you stop playing it safe, start saying yes, and allow the world and the people in it to interrupt your carefully constructed plans. In this conversation, we talk about what travel does to your identity, how connection with strangers can be wildly transformative, and why stepping into the unknown might be the most rebellious thing you can do in a life that started to feel a little too predictable. So welcome to the show, and could you tell everybody, please, what's your mischief?
Well, hello, Zoe. Thank you so much for having me here. And I love this question because, I don't know, it inspires a lot of different things for me. The first thing that I thought of when you said that is that I'm a bit of, I ask a lot of questions with people. So when you said, what is your mischief? I immediately thought of the reactions that people have to me because I think I'm a born storyteller and question asker, and I often go way too deep, way too fast with people. But I love it because I'm fascinated by human behavior and stories, and I feel I'm pretty intuitive. So I know who I can sort of go to these places with right away. But I think, to be honest, that question, what is your mischief, for me, connects so many dots. You know, I dabbled a little bit in stand-up comedy. I've written a book. I did a podcast or radio show for many, many years. And the common thread in all of that is I really just love to get into the nitty-gritty of people's lives. And it gives me an excitement and an interest and a sparkle. And some people think that I'm devious for like asking the questions that I do, or like some people just, people are very odd, right? But I think it's that. I think I kind of push people a little bit into like interesting corners of their stories and their lives. And that's something that I have been born with and that I love. So I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but that's what sparked it for me.
Wow. Your honesty is the answer I was looking for. So, in terms of this passion for asking questions and then storytelling, how has that played out in your life? Because it sounds like you're quite a multi-passionate. You've dabbled in different things, you've experimented. Where has it taken you?
It's interesting because I think we grow up thinking that we're all built the same. We're not really taught when we're young to pay attention when the light goes off in your body, when something suddenly feels magical and you think that everyone else feels the way that you do, be it singing or dancing or painting a picture or going for a walk in a forest.
Yeah.
I don't think we really figure that out until a little bit later, that those are our gifts and our talents and things to pay attention to. So I think for me, kind of realizing that I was built in a way that maybe others aren't. And I can tell from my reaction, when some people are like, Melissa, you're asking all these questions, or I don't know. I think for me, it's translated into so many things, I think meeting strangers, as we know, we'll talk about later, I wrote a book about travel, but it's not really about the travel. It's about the people that I was meeting along the way, the stories that they told me, the way that they impacted my life. I think it's that constant, you're just constantly curious. So it's led me to that. It's led me to doing what you do, like interviewing people. I had no idea what I was doing. I got a volunteer position with a radio station. I started a radio show with zero training, but it's still that belief that you know people and you know how to talk to them and how to make them comfortable and how to open up to you and how to get them to tell you things that they're not probably going to tell people. I interviewed a man who was like kept prisoner by a group of children in a little gang in Africa. It was a terrible, terrible story. He'd never told it before until he was he was fine. It all worked out, but he's like, I've never told that story in 30 years. So that's where a curiosity, like it takes you down a path. It can help people. It can change people's lives, that you didn't see coming just because people want to tell their stories. And, I think a lot of people are afraid to ask people stuff. They're afraid to hurt people's feelings. They're afraid that it's too private. And I just don't get that, because I think the more that we share, the more we're the same, and people feel better and they feel more connected. I mean, certainly there are boundaries, right? You have to read the room and read the audience. And I'm not claiming to be this person that's doesn't respect people, but I think we have to ask questions, and it leads to places that are very, very interesting. And like even being here with you, and we just had something happen in my family, and even the industry of like funerals and death and life, and like I find all of it so incredibly fascinating, about people's stories and what they chose to do and where it led them and how we see them once they're gone. And I don't know, just humans are wildly fascinating to me.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. And I love asking questions as well. But when did you discover that you had that capacity to, I don't know, to make people feel safe enough to open up to you? Because I think that that's something that you can take for granted until somebody points it out to you and says, actually, not everybody has that skill.
I think other people started commenting on it, and I can't pinpoint a moment. I'm sure I noticed it on my travels quite a bit with strangers where I felt like I knew them in 5 minutes. And other people around would be like, wow, you ask really interesting questions. And like people would you'd be talking to one person and then all of a sudden 8 people are listening to the conversation in a group. Or I think I just started noticing along the way. I'm sure in school, I was always a writer. I love telling stories, etc. But I don't know that I really figured it out maybe until even my 20s, 30s, where other people would comment on it. And then I don't really like small talk. So it's interesting, right? I mean, we have stories and they need to be told. And some people never feel even heard. And if you kind of take an interest in someone, it changes the whole dynamic of a relationship, even a temporary relationship, you know. I think it's just sort of come along the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you'd written a book,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that it stemmed from some of your experiences traveling. Tell me how that came about, and what's it all about? Because it's not about travel, is it? It's about the kind of human connections within traveling.
So what happened is I was 35 at the time. I'm 51 now, but I was 35 and I had a partner from England, and he was big into travel, and that's how we met. We met on a cycling trip in Cuba, and so we dated for about 4 years, long distance, which was awesome. I'm a big lover of long distance relationships. Anyway, he was going on a trip through Southeast Asia and China to connect with luxury tour operators and hotels to make connections for future business. I was not in love with my job, and it probably circles back to exactly what we were talking about, that it wasn't like filling it was a very operational job. And so when you have more to give than that, it's very, very challenging. It's very soul sucking. So there was no hesitation for me. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was very easy. I quit my job, off we went. But and this was like a multi-month trip, but when you are with somebody who has a purpose and a goal and has meetings set up, and you're just the tag along plus one, it's a very, very different experience. And we had traveled for many years together, so we knew each other's styles, and that wasn't a problem. But after a few weeks in, I needed a purpose, and I needed something, because after 3 or 4 weeks of traveling, I mean, I love it, but your mind starts getting wasted a little bit. Like for me anyway, that's how my brain works. So I just started creating these long emails in my head on buses and trains. It was 2010. We didn't have cell phones. So once a week I was in an internet cafe.
Oh, the good old internet cafe days.
Yes, right? Yeah. So sending these stories out to people through email, and long story short, they got passed around, and I should have started a blog, but I didn't. And 15 years later, I turned them into a story. But yeah, you're right. It's certainly, you will learn a lot about that part of the world, but it's really more about honesty, about where I was at in my life, how I felt about my relationship, how I felt about being 35. I didn't have kids. I didn't ever want kids. I struggled being in a relationship because I have a real need for independence and freedom. So there's a lot of stuff in there about that. And then it's about these people that just like come across your way. And so there's a little bit of everything in there. And when you do something like that, then it actually starts opening other doors for you. I think that's the thing we don't always realize in life. It's like when you take a leap into one thing, you have no idea what's coming next. You think, okay, I'm just going to write a book, and then I'm going to chill out for a while. That is not what happens with anything, right? One thing leads to the next, to the next, to the next. So that's kind of another fascinating thing about being alive, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can totally resonate with that, because sometimes you do start something with half an idea in mind, and you think you're not expecting it to go anywhere. And often those are the things that lead to totally unexpected opportunities or phone calls, or I don't know what. Are there any interesting things that have come off the back of writing this book? I'm sure there are.
Yeah, I think so many things. One is that you don't realize who it's going to impact. I mean, obviously a main part of this is travel, but it's actually not travelers that have come forward. I mean, certainly they've read it and they can appreciate it, but it's just interesting. Like, it's even what, I'm not putting myself on that same level, but you hear musicians say, famous singers will say, once you put a song out, it's no longer yours. It's up to everyone else and their interpretation. And the same thing has kind of happened. People will come up to me talking about things that impacted them or their perspective on it that I did not ever see coming. So that's that sort of connection to a community and to new people and different people, I did not expect to see coming. And that's very lovely. But I think it's many things, it's, writing a book kind of inspired me to try stand-up comedy. I think once you scratch an itch, you can't go back to life as it used to be. And certainly if you do something on your own, like this was a self-published book, so you have to be super dedicated and strict with yourself. There's a lot of self-discipline, et cetera, et cetera. But once you kind of go through that, life is very different. You're constantly chasing another project, or you've learned so much about this and you know that you can do it. There's a creativity. So certainly I'm writing a new book. I'm also really contemplating making a massive career change, which I don't know if that would have happened if I had done this.
Really?
Oh yeah, huge. I mean, it is life-changing to do things like this and to prove to yourself that you can do things like this. I think there's, the silly thing is when you write a book or you do anything, then all these people come up to you and they say, oh, I would like to write a book, or I've always thought about writing a book. Well, then do it. Because, and it doesn't really help me to tell me that that's what you want to do. Maybe it helps them, but it's like, then you should do it, because if we don't do these things, our body's going to tell us for the rest of our lives that there's something that we didn't do. That's something that I've really learned as an adult, and it's in my book as well, that your body knows exactly what you're supposed to be doing, but it's your mind that's constantly telling it not to. And if we don't listen, there's an agitation that develops in us that then we're looking at all these other places to make that feeling go away, and that's my experience. And until you address it, you can live a very uncomfortable life, I think, not kind of following what you're meant to be doing, or I don't know. I think it's really interesting. And I guess for me, this, it took me 15 years to put this thing out because of what I just spoke of. I was in and out. Do I do it? Don't I? Blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as you kind of do something, things start changing and unfolding, and you have more confidence, and you meet new people and certain people and more inspiring people. It doesn't happen overnight, but I think it's sort of, one small step at a time where the world starts opening up to you a little bit and unfolding. And it's interesting.
Do you think that writing the book is an example of what you've just said? Did you feel like you had it inside you and you were sort of wrestling with your mind to get it out? Or are there other things that you're still feeling you need to do, but you've been ignoring?
I think both. I was very lucky in some ways that 15 years ago, the response to it, even to these emails, was so positive. It wasn't just friends and family. Then they started sending it off to their friends and family. And so many people were like, what's coming next week? I love it. I heard about that for so long. So I was very lucky that I already had an inkling that there was something to it.
Yeah.
But I guess it was always sitting there. I always felt I had this story to tell, and I didn't know how well it would be received. It had happened so long ago. I didn't know if people would be like, oh, who cares? This was 15 years ago, but it turns out to be a timeless story. And I think it's also an interesting thing to read now when everyone's glued to their phones and social media. It kind of is like going back in time, to be honest.
Sure.
I do think we're all built with so many things that we think we want to do or know we want to do, and we block a lot of it out. And then I think it just sometimes takes one act of courage and the floodgates open up, So, and I think age helps, I think I am very much an example of someone who had many dreams and listened to the wrong people for so many things in my life and didn't listen to my gut instinct. And I think that the older you get, I read a quote, I think it was David Bowie. He's like, in your 50s, you become the person that you are supposed to be. And I think that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah, I think age does really count for a lot. I love what you said there about one act of courage opening the floodgates, because so often we block ourselves with all this fear and stuff. What do you think it was that prevented you? Was it the fear that nobody was going to care about this story, or that you wouldn't do a good enough job, or I don't know, what was it that you had to overcome in order to get the book out into the world?
Yeah, maybe it was going to be embarrassing, or that people would be like, I guess I was thinking that you'd have that reaction like, oh yeah, really well done, Melissa. But I think the place I had to get to was to realize it wasn't for anyone else. It was for me. And I had to realize that I didn't care. If people liked it, great. If they didn't like it, that's fine too. But, I knew that for myself, it was something that had to be released. And, that's not an easy place to get to, but yeah, I think, I'm the youngest, and the youngest in the family is forever looking for like constant approval and attention and whatever. And I think people always say that being the youngest is the easiest, but I actually don't think that it is. And so you listen to your siblings who put you down when you're a little kid, and that stays with you forever, right? So I was just like always sort of doubting myself. And then finally I was like, no, if I die tomorrow, I'll be very sad that I didn't do this. So I guess it's more of that. I don't know. But I think, again, it's that thing too, where it's like, if something's nagging at you, like it was always in my head, this story that was sitting there. And I just thought, what a shame. I put all this work into it, and it's not going to see the light of day.
Yeah, I think so many people can relate to that as well. That sense of there's something more I've got to give.
Yes.
And it's very hard to get past other people's opinions, self-doubt, all of those things. And there's a lot to be said for that moment of courage is actually in the decision, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm deciding and that's it, forward now. Let's go.
Totally. And I was also very lucky because I had one friend who was an editor, and I sent it to him, and I said, just tell me if it's good, I'll do it. If it's not, I'll put it away. And he read it. He said, you must do it. So, I mean, it's also that, right? It's also about knowing who your people are and who to choose. And that takes that's also a thing we learn through life. That's not something that comes naturally or easily sometimes, I don't think. We're looking for the wrong people's approval sometimes.
That's very true.
Yeah. And that can change your life, listening to the wrong people. I've listened to many of the wrong people. But not anymore. But it's taken a long time to navigate that as well.
Yeah. People talk about how travel changes them. And do you think that it was the travel itself that changed you, or did it sort of help you to reveal what you already knew you had inside you?
I think it's the latter. This whole notion that people go on trips to find themselves really irritates me, to be honest. It's so silly. And maybe that's a subjective belief that I have, but you hear it all the time. You read it all the time. I'm going away. I'll find myself. All that. I think it's BS. And never on a trip have I had a massive epiphany about my life, because most of the time you're in survival mode, trying to figure out what comes next, or where's the bus, or what am I going to eat, or who's this person entering my life. I think you have moments of really feeling deep feelings about that moment, or being alone, or being with people, or seeing something, or doing something, or swimming in the ocean, or whatever it is. But for me, no, I think maybe it gives you time to think sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing about travel. But I have never been a person that's had any epiphanies on a trip. Have you?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more, like you said, it's the space to think, maybe that you don't often gift yourself, but when you're away, your routine is disrupted and maybe you do find yourself thinking differently because you're in a different environment and your routine's been shaken up and that kind of thing. I think when I've been traveling on my own, it's probably increased my capacity to deal with uncertainty because it's so uncomfortable at times, isn't it? When you just have to figure it out as you go. And I think sometimes we don't get enough of that kind of experience in our normal day-to-day lives. But the minute you book a trip, and especially a solo trip, suddenly you have to just think on your feet and you have to figure it out.
Totally.
So I wonder whether sometimes it's more that than a case of some big epiphany about who you are. It's more a case of the small things like, oh, I managed to navigate this problem. Oh, look at me. I can actually handle certain things better than I ever imagined I could. You know, it does kind of make you think differently about who you are. That's just, you know, that's how it seems to me.
Totally. I think it builds your confidence. I think it's skill building more than anything, right? And certainly, like, you have moments where you think about your life and how maybe you want to live it differently or et cetera, et cetera. But and I think maybe it's when you come home is more when you reflect more than when you're in the moment on trips. I mean, but everyone's built differently. So I just think there's an overarching theme that's, you know, what happens traveling. And I just have never subscribed to that.
That's fair enough. You know, I've been talking to so many people lately who feel a bit stuck, not broken or lost, but just caught in that weird in-between where you know that you're meant for more, but you just can't seem to get yourself moving. And honestly, I get it because I've been there too. That's actually why I created something new called the Rebel Reset. It's a 90-minute session where we shake things up, we cut through the fog, and we get you moving again in a way that actually feels like you. So if you've been waiting for a sign or you're tired of ending the year feeling frustrated, this might be exactly what you need. You can just message me reset on Instagram, or you can reply directly via text through the show notes if you're curious. All right, back to the episode. And have you got much to do with radio these days, or is that something that you've put aside and now you're concentrating more on writing?
So the radio show happened after the trip in 2010, because when I came back, I had zero money. I was gone for about 4 months and I spent like $10,000, which I don't know if you could do that now, if I could get away with that these days. But
it's good to do these things when you're a bit younger, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. So I had no money. I really had to rebuild my life, which is not the fun part. And radio was a new adventure. It was something like the things we were talking about earlier that I'd always wished that I had done and wanted to do and didn't do it and still regret that. And so I had met somebody and I said, oh, you know, I had always wanted to do radio. And they said, you just go to the university, and every university has a radio station and they will teach you everything you need to know, and you can volunteer. And I think that is also a really interesting lesson in life that we don't realize when we're younger. And so for me, I feel like when you grow up, I was born in 1974. So me coming into university, I felt at that time they said, pick something. You have to pick one thing, and that's what you're going to do. Well, when you are good at lots of things, maybe not great, but you have promise in different areas, that is a very difficult thing to be told. So because you feel like if you pick one thing, then everything else is cut off, and you're too young to realize that you can do these things. But at that point, you're like, well, that's it. I'm picking one thing, and I better be damn sure about that, what that one thing is. And so I was very unsure.
That's so true.
It's so awful. And I think what I've learned later is that we can pursue all these things that were interesting to us. So radio and broadcasting and all of that was interesting to me. Writing was interesting to me. It may not look like what we thought it would look like, and the trajectory may be different. But if you're interested in those things, you will do those things, and you will find a way to do those things, and they're not dead to you, and they're not cut off. And I don't know what it's like to be a young person right now. I have nieces and nephews. It doesn't look so easy either. But what I do think is a beautiful thing is that I don't feel that mentality exists anymore. I feel there is more of an attitude that you can do different things, and that they actually interweave with each other, and they feed into each other, whereas that was not our message. So that has taken me a long time to sort of figure out. But that is something that I like to talk about on these shows, because I think there's a lot of people that as they age, they get stuck and they think it's too late, and I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And I think that's such a shame, because there's always an avenue. If something is of interest to you, it's not over. It's there for you. You just have to go for it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And I've had that problem myself. I was born in 81. So similar mentality, you have to pick something and then follow that path. And it's only as I've got older that I've begun to think, well, what about that thing that I used to be really interested in that I haven't picked up? And I think to a certain extent, you've got to give yourself permission to go back to those things that you used to love.
Totally.
Life doesn't happen in a straight line. No matter what they taught us at school, it doesn't work that way. And it's actually much more interesting and squiggly than we give it credit for, when we're prepared to just maybe take a U-turn or, branch off left somewhere. That's what makes life interesting, not sticking to the regular path. Because quite often, from the people I've spoken to, that direct path just leads somewhere a little bit unfulfilling. Not always, but often, because people, like you say, they kind of get stuck. It's like, well, I've been doing this for so long, like, how do I even get back to that thing that I put down 20 years ago, or I never explored? So I think it's, giving yourself the permission to say it's okay just to go back and explore it is fine.
Totally. And then for those people, and I meet those people too all the time, and I wonder how it must feel to be in that body, because I do believe we're all given something. We don't all have the same gifts and talents. And I don't believe everybody can do everything. I think that's a myth as well, when they're like, you can do whatever you want. I don't think that that's really true. I think we're all given certain gifts and talents, and we know what they are. And if we ignore them, like, that's a crime. I think it's a crime for ourselves. It's a crime for the rest of the world and the community that we live in. And it's, again, one of those things where, for me, even, I've noticed, I can be a pretty miserable person when I'm not like doing the things that speak to me. And when you tap in, you're a nicer person, and you're a more giving person, you're a happy person. So if we can all just lean in a little bit, I mean, it might be what we all need, to like, things are not great, as we all know at the moment. And I just feel like we really limit ourselves, and there's no need for that. I think that's one thing about traveling, is the people you meet sometimes are pretty damn cool. Like, I've met 75, 85-year-old people that are still out there backpacking and teaching you things. And I think that is one thing I do love about traveling is, there's a lot of people that are still acting like they're 25 out there on the road, and they're young forever. And that's so cool. That's really inspiring.
Yeah. Are there any people that come to mind when you think about people that might have made quite an impact on you? Those kind of meetings that you don't foresee, but afterwards you're still reflecting on the things they said or the things they showed you. I wonder if any of them have been kind of serendipitous as well, where you've come away and gone, wow, like I was meant to meet that person.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the meant to meet, I feel a lot traveling, because I feel like you're often meeting like-minded people that I think the people you meet are very different than the people in your social circles at home,
Yeah.
because when you're away, I think you're way more open to people. I think you're less judgmental. Everything is unpredictable. So you're just kind of taking in whoever comes your way. But I also think that there is a connectivity with people that you may not have at home, because you're obviously out there for the same reason. So you don't even have
Yeah.
to explain yourself. They get you. So that is a topic that I find quite fascinating. And I've met many, many people, like kindred spirits along the way. And no, but not always. Some people you're like, not for me, but, and that's okay. But there's one woman I met, traveling, who taught me really amazing lessons. And that's in my book. And she was probably in her 50s when I met her. I was 35, as I said. And she had done everything in the world. She was so well traveled, and she had a child. And when I met her kid was with her on their school break, and she was dragging her around the wilds of like Thailand or wherever we were, Cambodia, I think, actually. So we were at a bus stop together, or looking for a boat, or I don't know what we were doing, but going somewhere. And there were these two young women who were probably 25. They were backpacking, and she just started watching them. And then she looked at me and she said, they're done. They need to go home. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And she just said, there comes a point in every long trip that you're over it, and you should not be here anymore. It's not fair to other people. It's not even fair to that country. And we're all too stubborn and too egocentric to leave. And that is a huge part of the journey. And so it just opened up this new mindset for me, because backpacking and traveling in general can be very competitive. You'll meet people that are like, I've been on the road longer, or I have more stamps, or I've done this. It's so stupid, but it exists, And so luckily she had this conversation with me. And after 4 months, I was done on this trip. And I think if I hadn't spoken to her about that, I wouldn't have left, and I would have been miserable. I was miserable by that point. And so that is something that changed my view on ego, on listening to myself, on just knowing when it's time to tap out and go back to life. And then since then I've actually used that to, in 2023, I took a year off, but I was never gone longer than 2 months. Because I know I get burnt out, and I don't know. So she's stuck with me all these years later, but certainly there's characters that you think about often, but those transient relationships are really quite something.
Yeah, it's funny because you just made me think that when I was a kid, I used to have real issues with, perhaps I'd go on holiday with my family or something, and I'd make a friend, and I'd have that friend for a week, and then suddenly it comes to the end of the holiday, you go back to your daily lives, and I would always feel so sad that was over and I was never going to see them again. And I've seen my son, who's 8, he also has this kind of sense of, but I made this really good friend. I can't believe that I'm never going to see them again. Mm-hmm. And I think when you're a kid, that's a really hard thing to understand. And then as you become an adult, you realize that there are people who just kind of come into your life, people you just cross paths with, people who stay a bit longer. But it doesn't make those relationships any less valuable. Mm-mm. It's just a different kind of relationship.
Totally. And some of those goodbyes are still really hard. Yes. I spent 3 weeks in Colombia with some people, and I was so sad to leave them. So I think that some people are built like that. You get very, very attached. And yeah, some of these relationships are very powerful. And, I don't know if it's because, you probably will never see them again, but you tell them things. People are very open on the road, right? You have no one to impress. You have that is part of the beauty of of traveling, the freedom, right? To just be who you are, And sometimes I think you are another version of yourself, when you're not running around and scheduled and feeling responsible and this and that. Maybe that is the real you when you're away, the authentic you. And maybe that's why these relationships are so much more powerful and honest and vulnerable and bonding. You do things with these people that you don't do with people at home. I'm not climbing volcanoes with my work friends. And, it's just, it's so interesting, that whole, and I met a partner traveling. I felt like I'd known him my entire life in a week. And it's a very, very interesting topic.
Yeah, maybe that's where this whole sort of cliche about finding yourself comes from. I think really probably the root of it is that sense of I'm actually able to be authentically myself here in this environment. But yeah, you said that you're writing a second book. What's it about? Can I ask?
Yeah. Well, it's about, so I'm going to do one more travel book. I have one more book in me that's similar to the one I did. Obviously a different part of the world, and I'm, 15 years older. So that's interesting. So I feel I have a few more stories and, things to share that way. And I also write with a lot of humor, and that's very important to me. I just love connecting with people that way. So I'm going to do that. And then I just have a sense that things are going to go in a very different direction after that. So I'll just be very honest. I have a real fascination with the death industry, with like funerals and writing obituaries and telling people stories that way. And I just find it fascinating. And I always have. And that's another one of these things, right? We were talking about earlier. When something keeps coming up for you, you have to pay it a little bit of attention, to investigate it and explore it. But there's a reason why things keep presenting themselves. And so that's where I'm at the moment.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And my partner's dad just died. And so we're meeting with a celebrant who they're non-denominational and they lead the service. But to me, it encaptures so many things that I'm interested in, like writing, comedy, because sometimes there's a little bit of, there has to be humor a little bit sometimes when the moment calls, public speaking, presenting, all. So I think sometimes you can, over the years, do like little bits and pieces of things, and down the road they all start connecting. And I think I'm sort of in that mode at the moment. So who knows, but yeah.
Oh, it's so interesting. It's it's funny that you talk about that, because over the last couple of years I've thought a little bit about that industry. I think it's because I'm chasing this idea that I want my life to feel really alive, through experiences, through the people I meet, through the stuff I'm doing. And I think when you do that, it does force you to look at the opposite end of the spectrum, and so I've also found myself thinking about death and funerals and dying and the stories and the legacies that we leave behind. And similarly to you, actually, more than once I've had the thought of, I wonder whether being a celebrant would be something interesting to me. Isn't that funny?
Love it.
I haven't explored that, so I'll be interested to catch up with you in the future and see whether that's come to anything.
Well, I will let you know. It's very new, but and I think it's, a thing that happened for me recently, because this just happened with my partner's dad, but this is not a new thing that I've thought about doing. So we for a week we were, going to the funeral home and meeting celebrants, and I don't know, something in me was just like, I feel very alive in this. And then I went back to my job, because I still have like a very soul-sucking 9-to-5 job, and I was just like, I can't, this is not working anymore for me. I still have to pay the bills, so I have to figure this out. But I think shifts start happening, and what has purpose and meaning. And I do believe there's really something in working with other people and these connections. And And I also, this is a terrible thing to say, but there will always be work in that industry, the death industry.
For sure.
And AI is taking over our lives, but this is one area where we still can make a difference and help people. And there's just so much importance. If you can do those things, you can do them. I don't know if you know Catherine O'Hara. She was a Canadian who just died, and she's a comedy legend.
Yeah.
And one of the quotes that or things that keeps going around is she says exactly this. She's like, if you have a skill or a talent and you know what it is your duty to do it. It's not just for you, it's for everybody. And that can translate into so many things. Like we get really stuck, right, doing things we don't want to do because we have to survive. And I understand that too. I'm in that world as well, but we've got to explore it in our free time, I guess.
Yeah. But I love the fact that even though you are feeling like this job that you have is very soul-sucking, you're not allowing that to stop you from exploring the things that do light you up. I think that's the worst place that people can be, when they just kind of give up and go, this is it, I'm just going to have to settle. And that's when I want to shake people and be like, you don't have to settle. It might just be that this is what you've got to suck up for a time. Yeah. But if you keep exploring those things, if you can maintain that sense of curiosity, even when everything else feels like, very heavy, in one way or another, you'll pull on a thread and suddenly, things will start to reveal themselves that you've never imagined. So,
totally.
I guess I know it's probably not ideal being in this job. And as I said before, I can totally relate. But I think if you're blessed to have that kind of curiosity and a little bit of grit to keep going as well, then eventually I think finding something that you are really passionate about, or finding enough interesting things to fill the void outside of work, you can still have that sense of aliveness despite everything else.
Totally. And sometimes I think, I've met these people too that just kind of settle into a job and just decide that's the way it goes. But I think for me, that's what, keeps me like, nope, I'm like, like, I don't understand how you can just do that, you know? You can, like, they complain about it all day long, but they don't do anything else about it. Like, to me, that's what keeps pushing me. So in some ways, I guess these mundane jobs, I should thank them,
Yeah. There's a great book by Michael Dixon. I think it's called Everyday Creative. And I don't know if you know it, but it talks about the fact that you might, you're a creative person put in a corporate box and you feel like it's very soul-sucking and everything, is draining from you. But he also has that kind of view of, listen, you've got to flip that on its head, because being in that place is helping you to remember who you really are and what you have to bring, and to bring out of yourself in some way. So when it feels like it gets really heavy, remember that this is exactly the container that you need to remind you that you don't want to be in a box at all.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. I relate to that. Yeah. I was told once about the book called The Office Weirdo, and that my one of my bosses came up to me and she said, "You're the office weirdo." I'm like, tell me more. And she said, "You're the person that shouldn't be here. Like, you're this creative person that for some reason ended up working in an office, and you're very, very good at it, but you're like, and she's like, we're all supposed to celebrate that person because they're unique and they have all these gifts to offer, but this is not where they're supposed to be." I'm like, I don't know how to take this.
No, I was going to say, how did you take that? We're supposed to celebrate them. Oh. Try it.
Yeah, exactly. So I like your book better. That sounds like one to read.
Awesome. Listen, Melissa, it's been fabulous talking to you and getting to know you. Where can everybody find out more about you and get hold of your book?
So the book is on Amazon. It's called The People You Meet, and just make sure you look up the one by me, because I learned that there's many books by this, but I also have a fabulous subtitle. So it's The People You Meet, Luxury, Leeches, Love, and Lao Lao, with a host of interesting characters in Southeast Asia, by Melissa Rodway. That's on Amazon. And then I'm on Instagram at fly_travel_media. And then I have a website, which I don't update nearly enough, but it's called flyrodway.com. I need an assistant, Zoe.
don't we all? I'd love an assistant.
Me too. But no, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Really, really enjoyed it. You asked great questions and I loved our conversation.
Thanks so much. Listen, keep in touch. And when the next book is ready, do let me know.
I will. Maybe we'll start a celebrant business.
Why not? So before we go, here's a quick roundup of my takeaways from Melissa. Number 1, curiosity is a superpower. It can take you down a different path. It can change people's lives. Don't be afraid to ask questions. They might lead to somewhere really interesting. Number 2, when you take a leap into one thing, you have no idea what's coming next or the positive impact it might have on someone else, whether that's a book, a blog, a podcast, or a simple post on a social media platform. 3, Melissa said, your body knows exactly what you're supposed to be doing, but it's your mind that's constantly telling it not to. So if you don't address it, you can live with a lot of discomfort until you do. Number 4, sometimes we get derailed by listening to the wrong people. So choose carefully whose opinions you are willing to ask for and accept. Know who your people are. 5, one small act of courage can open the floodgates. Ask yourself how you would feel if you were to die tomorrow with that thing still inside you. 6, you might not have an epiphany about your life if you go travelling, but it will probably give you time to think, situations that build your confidence and the opportunity to be your authentic self among strangers. 7, is there something you've always wanted to try but felt too scared, too late, too old, or whatever else? Maybe this is your sign to go back to it. Volunteering can be a great entry point, or finding a community online with shared interests. Number 8, you don't need to pick one thing in life. I hope if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you know this by now, but it's always worth saying again. If you're interested in different things, go and do those things. You've got this and you can make them happen. 9, life gets interesting when you step off the common path and give yourself permission to carve your own. And number 10, maybe the things that are meant for us will just keep knocking on our door until we open it and let them in. And perhaps all the things we do in life are connected to our real purpose in one way or another, even when they seem totally unrelated. Maybe we get to join the dots looking backwards. Wait, hang on. Before I go, a quick note. As this podcast moves towards its final chapters, the best place to stay connected is my mailing list. That's where I'll share what's unfolding next when it's ready to be shared, without noise and without rushing. You can also find me on LinkedIn, where I'm still very much around and thinking out loud in public. There is something new taking shape behind the scenes, but I'm giving it the space to fully form before I speak about it properly. If you're curious, patient, and happy to sit in the in-between with me, you'll be in the right place. Thanks for being here, and I will speak to you again soon.